Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama.
Sai. Jaya Radha Madhava Punya Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Sadasyaman Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavindra ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivas Adi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Go Gopinath Sam Kund Radha Kund Giridhavan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Swami Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Jamuna Mai ki jai. Tulasi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Swami Bhaktivinoda ki jai. All glories to the assembled Lord. All glories to the assembled Lord. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna Mura, nice to see you. How are you doing? Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Haribo, how are you? Nice to see you
I
today.
am well. It's such an auspicious day, and I'm so glad to see everyone here.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank
So
you.
I'll put this look on the verse so we can start, please.
Okay.
Yes, can start.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here, and happy Kartik to all of you. Okay, so we're continuing Srimad Bhagavatam reading. Just start with some prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet Nashtra Prayesa Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavat Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtiki Om Agyanatimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Rapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hey, so greetings to all of you, and a very special greeting to my teacher, dear Lila, who is here today. So we sing these prayers to honor all our teachers and just pray that we can say something that sheds a good light on them. Okay, so Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, 10th chapter, verse 31. Evam vidha gadantinam sagira pura yoshitam nirikshanena bhinandan sasmitena yayau hari. Evam vidha, in this way, gadantinam, thus praying and talking about him, saha, he, the Lord, gira, of words, pura yoshitam, of the ladies of the capital, nirikshanena, by his grace of glancing over them, abhinandam, and greeting them, sasmitena, with a smiling face, yayau, departed, hari, the personality of Godhead. Translation: while the ladies of the capital Hastinapur were greeting him and talking in this way, the Lord, smiling, accepted their good greetings, and casting the grace of his glance over them, he departed from the city. And the next verse. Oops, one second. Okay, Srimad Bhagavatam, verse First canto, 10th chapter, verse 32. Ajata shratu pritanam gopitaya madhudusha parebhya shankita snehat prayunta chaturanginim. Ajata Shratur, Maharaj Yudhishthira, who was no one's enemy, Pritanam, defensive forces, Gopitaya, for giving protection, Madhuduisha, of the enemy Madhu, Sri Krishna, Parebhya, from others, enemies, Shankita, being afraid of, Snehat, out of affection, Prayunkta, engaged, Chatu Anginim, 4 defensive divisions. Translation and purport. Maharaj Yudhisthira, although no one's enemy, engaged 4 divisions of defense, horse, elephant, chariot, and army, to accompany Lord Krishna, the enemy of the asuras, demons. The Maharaj did this because of the enemy and also out of affection for the Lord. Purport. Natural defensive measures are horses and elephants combined with chariots and men. Horses and elephants are trained to move to any part of the hills or forests and plains. The charioteers could fight with many horses and elephants by the strength of powerful arrows, even up to the standard of the Brahmastra, similar to the modern atomic weapons. Maharaj Yudhishthira knew well that Krishna is everyone's friend and well-wisher, and yet there were asuras who were by nature envious of the Lord. So out of fear of attack from others and out of affection also, he engaged all varieties of defensive forces as bodyguards of Lord Krishna. If required, Lord Krishna himself was sufficient to defend himself from the attack of others who counted the Lord as their enemy. But still, he accepted all the arrangements made by Maharaj Yudhisthira because he could not disobey the king, who was his elder cousin. The Lord plays the part of a subordinate in his transcendental sporting, and thus sometimes he puts himself in the care of Yashoda Mata for his protection in his so-called helplessness of childhood. This is the transcendental Lila, or pastime of the Lord. The basic principle for all transcendental exchanges between the Lord and his devotees is exhibited to enjoy a transcendental bliss for which there is no comparison, even up to the level of Brahmananda. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine. Hey, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Okay, so first verse doesn't have a purport, but there's something really special happening in this verse, and that's the ladies of Hastinapur glorifying the Lord, and so he was pleased with them and responded by smiling and casting his merciful glance on them. This glance of Krishna is not just any glance. In Bhagavad Gita, it's said that his glance causes all of the living beings to enter the material world. And so it's very powerful. And Srila Prabhupada often talked about don't try to see Krishna, but try to behave, act, and live in such a way that Krishna is very pleased to see you. And so he's saying that we have to remember that we are the object and Krishna is the subject. And so often we have it backwards, right? We think we're the center. And when we're trying to see him, I mean, imagine his glance is powerful. It brings living beings. Actually, the word he uses is injects the living beings into the material world. And our glance, our senses are completely impure. And so it's important to try to get his glance rather to glance, than glancing at him. I remember doing some service for a festival at the Bhakti Center, and I was engaged in leading the serve out of the prasadam, and they closed the curtains early. So when I was finished towards the end of the night, I wanted to go up and get darshan, and the curtains were closed. I was so sad, and so excited from the service. And I went to the pujari and I said, Prabhu, what happened? The curtains closed. It's early. I was in a state. of excitement and also sadness of wanting to see them. And, I was very excited and I came with this energy. And he said, he quoted this to me. He said, you should try to be in a way that Krishna wants to see you rather than you trying to see him. And, that was the first time it just hit me like, wow, yeah, it's not about that. So our senses are different than Krishna's senses, but by directing our senses to the form of the Lord, those same senses become purified. So this is described in the fourth canto in the story of Maharaj, where Narada Muni is giving the process of meditating on the transcendental form of the Lord. And he's telling of the importance of it because the form of the Lord results in the purification of the mind. And when the mind comes into contact with the purity and the perfection and transcendental nature of the Lord, it becomes purified along with the other senses. And so he's giving him the mantra. And it also, there's a mantra that Srila Prabhupada would taught us, and he is still used at the beginning of any Vedic sacrifices. It's from the Garuda Purana. Apavitra pavitro va sarvavashtam gatopi va yasmaret pundarikaksham sabhaya bhayantara suchi Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu, Shri Vishnu. And it says both pure and impure, passing through the conditions of material life. If one remembers the lotus eye Lord, then one becomes externally and internally clean. So it doesn't matter that we are in the impure state. Just by remembering Shri Krishna and coming into contact with the most pure, we become purified. And so interestingly enough, these women that are being described here in a couple of verses before were described as impure, but actually they were the most pure. They had true realization because they knew Krishna, and therefore they knew the absolute truth. They had the true knowledge because they were glorifying him. So they were singing his glories, and they're only singing his glories because they know of them. And so it's very interesting that socially they were impure. But we're not who society tells us we are. We're who Krishna tells us we are, and who authorized sources of knowledge, Sadhu Shastra Guru, tell us that we are, not what the external world tells us. Even our own minds don't know who we are, and our minds are in our, they live in our bodies, it's our subtle body. But the mind's confused about who I am, right? It either thinks I'm too much or not enough, or I'm this or I'm that, and I get confused. And so we want to go to the right sources about who we are. So this is that verse, the second verse, verse 32, Maharaj Yudhisthira, although no one's enemy, engaged 4 divisions of defense, horse, elephant, chariot, and army to accompany Lord Krishna, the enemy of the asuras, the demons. The Maharaj did this because of the enemy and also out of affection for the Lord. So it's explained here that Krishna is playing the role of the subject, and he's letting Yudhishthira be king. And I think towards the beginning of this chapter, he asked permission from the king to leave, to take his leave. He wasn't just leaving because he decided, okay, it's my time to go. He did decide that, but he's following the customs, and he's asking the king if he can take his leave. And of course, Yudhishthira told him he can go. And so now we're in this procession. So it's explained here that he's playing the part of a human, right? And so he's following all of these customs, and he doesn't need Yudhishthira's protection, and like he didn't need his permission to leave. Technically, he doesn't need anyone's permission to do anything. He doesn't need the permission, but if he's doing it also as an example, right? We know that Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita that he acts because he's setting an example for the rest of the living entities, and that's just his mercy. He's showing us what to do. He doesn't actually have to do anything. And so he doesn't need this protection, yet he accepted the love, because it said that Yudhisthira is also doing this out of love. So Yudhisthira didn't have any enemies, and Krishna, there were asuras who were envious of him, and yet he doesn't really need the protection. But when a loved one is setting off on some journey or departing, we want to offer the best. This is why the ladies, when they were trying not to cry, because they wanted to offer him the best and the most auspicious departure. And so it was an exchange of love. And the 6 loving exchanges, they're about receiving as much as giving. And sometimes I wonder if we take those things for granted, because Krishna is always giving us so much. He's giving us knowledge. He's giving us ability to engage in devotional service. And yet the mind is still distracted. We're still falling into, sense gratification, or reminds me of when Prabhupada, someone asked Prabhupada about how we fall into Maya, and he's like, you don't fall into Maya. You're always into Maya. You're always in Maya. Sometimes you fall into Krishna consciousness. And so this is the difference. But the loving exchanges, we have that with the devotees. Nectar of Instruction talks about this, offering gifts, but also receiving gifts, revealing one mind in confidence, and inquiring confidentially, accepting prasadam, and offering it. And so they're supposed to be exchanges. And there is a perspective where we can see this, how we are reciprocating with Krishna, but do we accept everything that he's giving us? Are we even aware of this? And so in the way that he's playing these roles, as younger cousin, as subject of the king, he's playing a role because he wants to taste rasa. And this is the point. The point of all of these roles that he's playing is just for the rasa of it. So today, very auspicious day, the beginning of Kartik, and this is mentioned, this Lila is mentioned in this purport, that Krishna lets himself be taken care of as part of the transcendental Lila. And it's for the tasting of the rasa. So Srila Prabhupada says that this basic principle of all these transcendental exchanges between the Lord and his devotees is exhibited to enjoy a transcendental bliss. That's that rasa, for which there is no comparison. So Mother Yashoda is in the rasa of Vatsalya and is playing the role of a mother who is lovingly disciplining Krishna, and Krishna is reciprocating by playing the role of the son. So both are engaged in the tasting of this rasa. But Krishna doesn't need anyone to take care of him. He's just playing a role for the purpose of this transcendental bliss. So Arjuna in Sakya Rasa plays the role of a friend, and Krishna reciprocates by playing the role of a chariot driver, because that's what Arjuna needs in the moment. The queens of Hastinapur are in Madhurya Rasa, and Krishna plays the role of loving husband. He gave them all these palaces. He was with them. Never, I think it was yesterday's verse, never left them alone. And he gave them everything that they needed in that relationship. And so rasa is really the Srila Prabhupada in Nectar of Devotion says that it's this is a paraphrase, but he's saying that it's the attractive driving force of all of our activities, everything that we do, whether it's philanthropy or this nationalism, or even in our family lives. It's the rasa that we're chasing after. And we're always engaged in some activity. The impetus is that we're enjoying it. And that's the rasa, right? We very rarely will eat something that doesn't taste good to us. And so that's just a very mundane example, but it is the same as rasa. We're seeking out that taste, that mellow. And let's see, this is from Srila Prabhupada's Nectar of Devotion. The rasas derived from our feelings of social life and family life, or in the greater family life of altruism, philanthropy, nationalism, socialism, communism, do not guarantee that one's next life will be as a human being. We prepare our next life by our actual activities in the present life. And the difference is that these rasas that we engage in, like Yashoda, like Arjuna, like the gopis, they are not mundane rasa, they're transcendental. And what is the difference? The rasas that we're seeking out in all of these things that Srila Prabhupada is mentioning, they're mundane. And because they're mundane or material, one could say, they're real and they are a reflection of transcendental, pure, true rasa, but they don't endure. So rasamrita is this rasa that is eternal. So the experience of mundane rasa, even with the best of intentions, such as with our family or nation, it doesn't guarantee us a human birth. And so in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, in this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. And he talks about that this, the Sanskrit word that is used is danger. And the greatest danger that we can encounter is not being able to continue on this path, not having a human birth. And so rasa has to be properly engaged with in a way that does give us that protects us from this greatest danger. So rasa that doesn't die. And this way we don't lose the opportunity of a human body and continuing, because Srila Prabhupada says, in this purport, he talks about if you start off or you leave off at 1% Krishna consciousness, next lifetime you start off at 2%. And so in this way we just continue. And so this rasa, it's the center of everything that we do, and it's so important to understand them. So there's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the rasas, in other books too, the rasas are explained. There's 12 rasas, 5 primary and 7 secondary. In Madhya Lila, it said the chief transcendental mellows experienced with the Supreme Personality of Godhead are 5 Shanta, Dasya, Sakya, Vatsalya, and Madhurya rasa. And in addition to the 5 direct mellows, there are 7 indirect mellows known as laughter, wonder, chivalry, compassion, anger, disgust, and fear. And there's in 10th canto, or in Krishna book, there's the pastime of Jambavan, who is in complete anger. He's angry because Krishna has come to steal not steal, but take back the Shamantaka jewel. And Jambavan's like, he comes in anger because he's thinking, wow, Krishna's trying to steal this from my son. And he gets very angry, and he starts engaging in this fight that I think lasted like 28 days of this awful fight. And Srila Prabhupada talks about that Krishna engaged in this. He went into this Lila because he actually just wanted to have a good fight with his devotee. He was in the fighting mood. And so that was a rasa that he was trying to engage in. And so he creates this Lila with the jewel, and Jambavan ends up with the jewel. I think it was a tiger or a lion. I think it was a lion that brought the jewel, or I think a lion ate it. Okay. But either way, this is happening. Yeah. So we have the Shamantaka jewel here. And there's a place there where it talks about Jambavan is in anger. Let's see a little bit. Krishna just wanted to have a good fight with his devotee. And so through this rasa, Okay, so the lion killed Prasenna, who took the jewel and took the jewel away. Jambavan ended up with the jewel, gave it to his son. I think it's a little bit lower where Krishna talks, where Prabhupada talks about Krishna just wanting to have a good fight. Jambavan considered Krishna an ordinary man and began fighting him. For 28 days they fought. So somewhere in there, he says that through this, he started off with anger, but through this rasa, he ended up coming into contact with Krishna and remembering who Krishna was. But I found it's such a beautiful thing that Krishna just wants to fight. He wants to engage with his devotees in this way. And so he creates problems. He creates some drama. And that's rasa. Right? That's what it is. And I think we do that too in our lives. We're always looking to experience this rasa. And it's really important to become aware of this so that we can take responsibility for what we're attracting in our lives. And so that we can redirect and purify or dovetail this propensity to experience or taste rasa. So do we see this, that the desire for rasa is what's driving us? And can we accept that our tastes are unrefined and mundane? We are seeking out this rasa that doesn't endure, that isn't going to bring us that eternal, the eternal, or take us to the eternal. It's like if we're not raised in Krishna consciousness, sometimes we don't know about how to eat and what to put in our bodies, and sometimes we're engaging in meat eating, and so our tastes are unrefined. And even so, we see people that you try to give them vegetables and they don't want it. They don't have the taste for it. And this is the same. So purification is the development of refined taste. And we get to that point where we're only the highest for me. And it starts off, taking prasadam is a good way to start refining that taste, right? Because it's at the gross level, and then we move on to the more subtle levels. And then we're engaging in this rasa that is beyond our bodies, that is beyond our subtle bodies, beyond the things that we do in this world, because we don't stop engaging in these rasas. But we come to realize that this rasa is mundane, and how can I dovetail this to Krishna? And that's why we have the same type of relationships in the material world that are in the spiritual world, but we know the difference. So engaging with rasa in a way that is in our best self-interest, and in a way that I think it's in the same Nectar of Devotion where Prabhupada says that these mundane rasas, we're just trying to satisfy ourselves. And if we ultimately want to satisfy not just ourselves, everyone, and the way to do that is by satisfying Krishna. This is what it means to water the roots of the tree instead of the leaves. And so are we taking responsibility for where we are in this relationship with rasa? Or are we victims of, or playing the rasa of a victim to our circumstances? Can we move from this is happening to me to this is happening for me, so that I can understand that there is some purification that is required here, right? And that is the development of refined taste. So the more refined our taste gets, the purer the thing is. So this Bhakti Rasamrita is ultimately, it's about investing. Are we investing in the eternal, or are we investing in something that's just going to dissolve at the end of this life? We're not going to have anything left. Our bodies, our subtle bodies, everything's going to go, and the only thing that lasts is this contact with the eternal. There was a class given by His Holiness Ramnath Swami, and he talked about this, that in 1,000 years, no one will remember our names. No one will know who we are or what we did or what we didn't do. But if even one flower was strung with pure devotion, that devotion will reverberate through eternity forever. And it seems like such a small thing, but that's the eternal, that's the rasa, that devotion, that love is the only thing that actually exists forever, right? And yeah, so this, I really like this. I don't remember where I heard this, but this investing in the eternal through rasa, through everything that we're doing, through all of our relationships and connecting them back with our dear Sri Krishna. And there's a quote by Bhaktivinoda Thakur that says this, related to the senses and this being contaminated and uncontaminated. The senses can then become uncontaminated, being constantly in touch with bhakti rasa. When the purified senses are employed in the service of the Lord, one becomes situated in bhakti rasa life. And any action performed for the satisfaction of Krishna in this transcendental bhakti rasa stage of life can be relished perpetually. When one is thus engaged in devotional service, all varieties of rasas or mellows turn into eternity. I'll read that last line again. When one is thus engaged in devotional service, all varieties of rasas or mellows turn into eternity. And this is our protection, right, of the greatest danger. And our greatest danger is to not to lose this body or not to come upon some catastrophe, because we know that the material world is full of danger. Srila Prabhupada said this. But the greatest danger is to not have Krishna, to not remember Krishna, to not have devotees who will remind us of Krishna and bring us back over and over back to Krishna and taking us back to the eternal. And so every moment, every action has the potential to touch the eternal by remembering Sri Krishna, right? It goes back to that verse. If one just remembers the lotus-eyed Lord or the lotus-eyed one, he becomes pure. And that purity, that the contamination is the misidentification of ourselves, right? We're contaminated with material life. And the purity is to remember that we are who we are and who Krishna is. And so we get confused. And this is there's a little cartoon in the United States, Peanuts, Snoopy. I don't know if Snoopy's all around the world, but one of the kids that were his friends, he always had this little cloud of like dust around him. He was always dirty. Everywhere he walked, a cloud of dust just followed him. And this is our contamination, right? This forgetfulness of who we really are, and misidentifying the mundane, the non-eternal, the temporary, and not realizing that through the mundane, actually it's very interesting setup that Krishna has. Through the mundane, we can touch the eternal. So that's the whole point of transcendental. You go through transcending something. And so Srila Prabhupada talks about that this rasa, understanding these rasas, actually renovate. He uses the word renovate in the preface to Nectar of Devotion. Renovates our relationship with Krishna. And to renovate is to take something old or something that already exists and to bring it back to its original state. So we already are these servants of Krishna. We already are in rasa with Krishna, but we just have to renovate the situation. And see. And so I'm wondering if anybody has any questions or any concerns, feedback, corrections about these points. Because rasa, we are all experiencing rasa, but it's different for all of us. Oh, you're muted, Prabhu.
Thank you for your class. Thank you so much. I have some questions, 4 questions for you.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Now, we
Go
promised you
easy
last
on me.
time we welcome you. Today we give you questions. Don't be scared. Okay, my first question is about the importance of Krishna glancing over a devotee. You mentioned that we shouldn't try to see Krishna, but Krishna, we should walk in such a way that Krishna will glance over us. So what do I have to do that Krishna will glance over me? And what is the benefit of Krishna's glance in my life?
Thank you, Prabhu. That's such a lovely question. What we do to get Krishna's attention is serve his devotees, love what he loves. And he loves the devotees, that the devotees are the most dear to him. And he doesn't need anything else from us. He's complete within himself, right? Sri Upanishad, he's already complete. And we have, the reality is we have nothing to offer him except our devotion, right? Going back to that rasa. But what is really, we know what is really important to him and what he values, and what he will do anything for are his devotees. So what he will do anything for, he'll do anything for Arjuna, even play his charioteer. He'll do anything for Yashoda Mata. He'll play her child. He'll do anything. And also for Arjuna, he was willing to break his promise, right, on the battlefield when Arjuna was in danger of being harmed by Bhishma. And so we can see this is what's most important to him. And if we know what's in our rational, best rational self-interest, then we will take note of that and honor the devotees. Nothing, and also nothing ruins our spiritual life more than offending a Vaishnava, than criticizing a Vaishnava. And a Vaishnava is a devotee of Krishna. So this is telling, this means something, that the Vaishnavas are the most important thing. And Krishna recognizes them as such. And so we recognize them as such. And everything that we do is to serve the devotees. The second part of your question is, what is the importance of Krishna glancing over us? Then he can see benefits. Say that again.
What is the benefits?
The benefits. Well, we want to be seen by him, right? Because when Srila Prabhupada talked about this, he also said that you come to Krishna, you come to the deity with this report. I think that was the exact word he used. You come to this report, like, here's what I have done for you, not just look at me and, but having something to offer, because again, he doesn't need anything. But we want to show that we are actually engaged in something that's beneficial, and what is beneficial is serving the devotees. So the benefit, why wouldn't we want to be seen by the Lord, and so that we can be acknowledged, because it's that contact that purifies us. And I can just, the only realization I have on this is just in the mundane, material world, where we just want to be seen. We just want to be acknowledged. We want to be appreciated. And so there are two sides to that: the ego, self-centered side, where I just want to be seen for my own sense gratification. And the only way to purify that is to take that propensity, that need, they are legitimate needs of being seen, of being loved, of being appreciated, and dovetailing it to Krishna. So if I want to be seen, and let's just say I'm in a place where I do want to be the center of attention, we have to purify that first. And so the way to purify that is to want to be seen for the right things in the appropriate way, to be seen by the devotees. And how do you become seen by the devotees? By the level of devotional service that we perform. So it's a matter of purification. At least that's the experience that I've had, because I do have that propensity. I want to be seen, I want to be appreciated. But in the years of devotional or attempted devotional service, it starts to shift, it starts to change. It becomes a more refined wanting to be seen, and it's not about me anymore. It's about the service, it's about what we're offering, it's about the other, not so much me. And this is why the loving exchanges are two-sided. Can we learn to be the giver, and can we learn to be the receiver? So that's really one benefit that I can think of, is to purify this. The reason we're here is because we want to be the center of the universe. So we need to purify that.
Thank you. Thank you. We take second question from Andrea Paula. Andrea, please unmute.
Hare Krishna, dear Lila Prabhu.
Hey, Hare Krishna.
I just wanted to reflect back that when you shared about purification as the refining of taste to a higher level, it really resonated for me, because with, as you mentioned, the auspiciousness of today being the first day of Kartik, I know that a lot of us kind of take on promises of things that we're going to give up for Kartik and things that we're going to bring in. And this is so important for me, because I feel like Kartik is that especially potent time for purification. And it's really interesting that you just answered the Prabhu's question with very much what I was thinking of like that, like what's the benefit? It's that purification. And then what's the benefit of Kartik? It's enjoying the amazing Lilas of baby Krishna, who I love, but it's also about like purifying like these needs. Like I have the need to sometimes play games, and I've decided that I'm not going to play my pinball game on my phone for this auspicious month of Kartik. I deleted it, and instead, every time that I feel that need, I'm going to grab a Back to Godhead, or I'm going to draw something that has to do with Damodara, or, it's like, it's not necessarily always that we just have to give things up. It's kind of like you said, dovetailing it into something else. So I know it's like a silly example, but I really, really like that you mentioned that. So thank you again.
Thank you, Andrea. I don't think it's a silly example at all. And I think that I personally struggle with this over endeavoring of I'm going to do all of these things and I'm going to give up all of these other things. So it's not about taking up or giving up. It's about increasing the rasa. And so, sometimes, we get very attached to the rule. And, particularly sometimes you see it with Ekadasi, like getting really intense about looking at the ingredients in something. And, it's not about the ingredients, it's about thinking more of Krishna. So if I give this up, is it going to make me love Krishna better? Is it going to increase my rasa? And if it is, then do it. And if I take this up, is it just going to make me feel like I'm doing so much more? And oh, look, I'm so great, I'm doing all of these extra services. Or is it really going to increase my rasa? And if it does, then we do it, then we take it up. And so it said 2 rules in Krishna consciousness. And every other rule is in service to these 2 rules. And one is never forget Krishna, and the other is always remember Krishna. And so with that mood, we can be more mindful of honoring our time, and we don't over endeavor or under endeavor and just take up things. What's the point of giving up this or that or the other? Maybe it's good for the health, if that's the necessity. But if it doesn't increase our rasa and it just makes us tense and tired, and or we feel, you know, this aggrandizement, right? That, oh, look, I'm so great. Krishna's not going to turn his glance on us because we think we're so great, right? It doesn't work that way. And so I really appreciated that point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mother. Next question, Sadev Prabhu, please.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Nice to see you.
Nice to see you. Thank you so much. Well, but Lila, I have a question for you. I know you didn't say what I'm going to ask, but since you're speaking about it, you might have an answer to it. And that is, Shuta Goswami was the one who spoke the verse you read. He is saying that Maharaj Yudhishthira is Ajata Shudra, that he is someone who has no enemy. And it's kind of baffling to me. How does Sutta Goswami say that Maharaj Yudhishthira has no enemy? Everyone has enemy. Even Krishna has enemy. So if Krishna has enemy, how come that Maharaj Yudhishthira does not have enemy? Maharaj Yudhishthira may not have somebody as an enemy, but somebody may see him as an enemy. So if you can throw a little more light on the reason why Sutta Goswami is saying what he's saying. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. I did notice that, and it is interesting. Krishna, I'm gonna just go back to that verse because there was something about.
I'm seeing my long lost sister, Shalagram Sheila here. Hare Krishna, Mother Shalagram. Hare Krishna.
Shalagram Ki Jai. Nice to see you, Shalagram. Yeah, it does say Maharaj Yudhishthira knew well that Krishna is everyone's friend and well-wishers, and yet there were suras who were by nature envious of the Lord. I wonder, maybe it's more of a question than an answer, but I wonder if it's the same to have enemies because, or if there's a difference. There seems to be a subtle difference in someone being an enemy and someone being envious. And so Yudhishthira, he was also everyone's well-wisher. And I think towards the beginning, maybe in the 6th verse, it talks about Yudhishthira also having no enemies. And it talks about the process of him, how he took over the kingdom and all of the things that he did after this war. And he set everything up in a way where he didn't have enemies because he was everyone's well-wisher. And I don't know what the correlation is, but it seems that if you're everyone's well-wisher and you're doing everything right, or following dharma, then there are going to be people because of their own impurity that are envious. And that just seems to be the thing that comes up about this. So not so much that there are enemies as in, okay. So let me just be clear on this thought that I want to share. There's a difference between enemies that we create because of our own conflicts, our own internal conflicts, our own lack of knowledge, and the way we approach people, and enemies that are created because of the others impurities, the other's conflicts, the other's lack of confidence. There's a difference. And sometimes we are the cause of our enemies, and sometimes we are not. Just people may just be envious, like what is happening here with it's talked about Yudhisthira and Krishna. They're not causing enemies. They're not going around being aggressive and just taking over, like everyone should follow what we're saying. They don't have that mood. And so there seems to be a very clear distinction between those kinds of enemies of people who are just envious, and when we actually go and create enemies by offending someone, by attacking someone, by doing something that is adharma. And so I don't know exactly the answer to your question, but there seems to be this distinction. And so it just points back to us, right? If there is enemies, what am I doing if I'm not part of the solution, then I'm part of the problem? And what is my role here in this, right? It goes back to rasa. Sometimes we just want to engage in some conflict because we like drama or some, that's true. We sometimes do like drama, and we create all of these things. So when there is enemies, I think that this could be a question. What am I doing to create the situation, or to, if I'm not helping, then I must be creating it. Because I think if there's enemies when someone is envious, or, what can you do? We won't make ourselves smaller because someone is envious. That's also not the appropriate thing, because that's not what Krishna wants. And it probably will not be good for our service. So I think that maybe more than answering a question, it just opens up more of a discussion into this, what is a true enemy? And sometimes we think we have enemies, but they're not really our enemies. We just like to, have this people are envious of me. Of course, that's what the problem is. But really, we do have some part in how people see us. There is this, I once heard this class by a Christian pastor, preacher, and he talked about going to 10 people and asking 10 people that you trust and are going to be honest, and say, what does it feel like to be on the other side of me? And they would tell you honestly, give you some feedback about what it's like to be on the other side of you. And I remember at the moment thinking, oh my goodness, I do not want to go ask not even one person what it feels like to be on the other side of me, because I know what my habits are, my propensities, and all of these things. And so that's something that we can at least start to think about if we have this idea of enemies. At the same time, they were, it was material world. There are enemies, and Krishna wants to engage in that rasa. What about the demons? All of the demons that he ended up killing, they were playing the role of enemies. Shishupala is one of my favorite pastimes. He's playing the role of an enemy, but they all go back to Krishna anyway. So it just seems to be like roles that are played within the context of the world, right? And engaging in that rasa. So enemies are necessary for the rasa, right? One could argue that that's true. Imagine if there were no conflicts, then, yes, the world would be nice, but even in the spiritual world, there's conflict. And then there's this idea of enemies and conquering, because they're rasas of chivalry and anger. These are all rasas. And so I wonder if it's because, this isn't an answer, I don't actually have one, but I wonder if it's because of that larger Lila of being in rasa with Krishna. What do you think, Prabhu?
Okay, thank you. Now I can ask my 3 other questions. You speak about we are always in Maya, and sometimes we fall into Krishna consciousness. So my question is, why do we say he falls down? He looked, she falls down. We were always in Maya. Are we pretending that we are not in Maya? One of the 25 qualities of a devotee is truthfulness. So when somebody Brahmachari falls down or got married, why do we say he falls down? When we are always in Maya, sometimes we fall into Krishna consciousness.
I don't agree with this phrase of falling down, because the process of Krishna consciousness is not linear. It's about purification and refinement. And it's implied that when we say falling down, we're saying that one can never make mistakes, that all of a sudden we come to Krishna consciousness and all of a sudden we are perfect and our tastes are completely refined and we will never do anything that is part of our conditioning in the material world. The modes of material nature are so strong, and we have been practicing this material conditioning for lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. And it's a process. It's a stop and go, stop and go, stop and go. To imply that someone's fallen down because they've, had some episode of mistaken identity, mistaking the tattvas, thinking that we're material or seeking sense gratification. I'm not sure that is the correct phrase that one can use, because it's cyclical. It's more of a spiral, right? And sometimes it seems like we're oh man, I'm here again. I thought I knew better. But we come up against the same thing as a different person with more understanding. And so it seems like we're coming across the same things over and over, the same propensities, the same contaminations, the same habits over and over, but we're not actually, going over and over. So is it really falling down, or is it just coming across an impurity that is still there, that didn't go away, and now we are a different person and we can approach it in a different way? And or maybe it's a phrase that's used because the only thing that happens when you fall down is you have to get up, so maybe it's a testament to that. You just keep going, you fall down, you get up, you fall down, you get up. But I'm not sure that is the most conducive way of explaining what happened.
It's a common phrase.
Yeah.
It's a general language. Okay, yeah. My next question is on relationship or ras.
Okay.
You spoke so much about relationships and rasa. So my question is, we are trying to detach ourselves from bondage or material attachments. Relationships leads to attachments, either with Krishna or with the opposite sex or with properties. Relationship or ras leads to attachments, which attachment brings repeated birth and death. So why don't we just live without relationships or ras? Well, since we are trying to free ourselves to go back to Godhead, why don't we stop every relationship and just focus on Mahamantra?
Because we're personalists. We're not impersonalists. Everything is relationship. And there's nothing wrong with attachment if we keep it in the proper perspective. If we become attached to something and understand that we are in the material world and that nothing in this material world is permanent, that it's temporary, then when the attachment is broken, or when something happens, or someone leaves their body, or some relationship ends, we see that as part of this material world. But I'm not sure that there is anything wrong with attachment. It's when we put our attachment in the wrong things that aren't going to elevate us. or where we don't know what to do with the attachments, such as this should never end, this should be permanent, this should be forever, then we suffer. But we should be attached to Krishna because Krishna we're part and parcel of him. So and we are already attached with him. We are in internal relationship with him.
This is the problem. Being attached to Krishna, he tells you, my devotees are very dear to me. Serve my devotees. Then you become attached to Krishna, to devotees. You become into a relationship. Like it's not even Krishna. Krishna leads you to love him and attach yourself to him in a relationship. And he directs you back to material attachments. In the name of my devotees are very dear to me. So how do you disentangle yourself from that relationships? Krishna seems to be playing games with the living entities.
Yeah. It's pure. It's the purification. It's using that, right? Because everything in this world can be used in Krishna's service. So using these relationships and bringing them back to Krishna, understanding their connection to Krishna, understanding that it is a reflection of something that is true and real, then we can properly use it. It's like renting a car. You know that it's not yours. You know that it doesn't belong to you. You know that you also have to take care of it. So you treat it well, because otherwise it will cost you. But you use it appropriately to do what needs to be done, to do some service, to go where you need to go, transport things. So you can be attached and at the same time know that I'm not keeping this. And it's only to be used in an appropriate service. You don't, rent a car and go and like smash things up, because that's not the appropriate use of it. So I think if we keep things in their proper perspective and don't confuse what is real, what is unreal, what is permanent, and what is temporary, then there's no problem.
Okay, thank you. I will give you my last question, please, from the papers. In the papers, it's on the screen. See here, can you see it? Krishna says, here comes my question. The Brahmastra, similar to atomic weapon, Maharaj Yudhishthira knew well that Krishna is everyone's friend and well-wisher, and yet there was Asuras who were by nature enemies of the Lord. So the attack, my question here is, there was an arrangement to protect Krishna when he was going to whatever, to say Yudhishthira. So the Brahmastra is a mantra, right? So my question is in relation to what happens in Bangladesh, where the mob kill devotees, destroy properties. At what point can devotees apply this Brahmastra, these mantras we chant every day? We don't have guns, we have Brahmastra weapons in the name of mantras. Why didn't they apply the mantras to defeat the terrorists? Are we chanting the mantra only for show, or the mantras are not effective, or we're not qualified to chant the mantras? What are we really doing to protect ourselves with all these mystic mantras we are chanting all these years? Or is this just for fancy? Because in the Kurukshetra, we see how Arjuna was chanting Brahmastra with fire, with everything, with rain, with thunder to kill the enemies. So when can devotees apply Brahmastra? I didn't put it, I saw it in the papers. Prabhupada wrote it. So not me.
That would be really interesting to see that. But my understanding is we don't have the same potency in Kali Yuga that was there before. Are there people who can who are elevated to the point where they can chant these mantras?
Yes, I don't personally agree when devotees say we don't have the same potency. This is Kali Yuga. If this is Kali Yuga, then the Mahamantra also should have no potency. All of my mantras, Mahamantra is working in Kali Yuga. The same time it was working in Sata Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapara Yuga. But when it's come to other mantras, we always hear this is Kali Yuga. So why is mantra working?
Well, the Maha Mantra is different, right? And actually, we don't have the potency to just invoke Krishna because we're chanting a mantra. We can't, our material selves can't take the spiritual and just bring it down because we said some mantras. Krishna only descends in the Maha Mantra because he wants to, not because we're causing him to come down because we chanted these mantras. We don't control him in that way. By his mercy, he makes himself available through the mantra. And it's the actual love and devotion and the true crying out that causes him to descend via the mantra and be in the mantra and be present there. We can't just chant it and say, okay, I chanted it and now he's definitely present. We don't have that control. And I think it's arrogant for us to think that we have that much control over him.
Okay, so when a child is born, we do ceremony. When one get married, we do ceremony. When one pass on, we do ceremony. New house opening, we do. These are not mantras. These are not Maha mantras. It's other mantras. So why do we chant it when it's not effective in Kali Yuga? Are we deceiving the world or what?
Could it be, there is something to be said about rituals, that there's samskaras, right? All of these Vedic rituals are samskaras. And so it's about intention, and the samskaras are for us. So it's said that, and this is just my understanding, and I could absolutely be wrong and just not have the realization, but it is said that these mantras that are chanted in Kali Yuga do not have the potency. However, there is something to be said about samskara, and doing something in a ritual purifies. And so you can think of, for example, if two people choose to live together in a romantic relationship, there is something to be said about that samskara of marriage, of the actual ceremony of marriage. It gives it a legitimacy. It makes it official, even if it's just in our own mind. So it may not be that the mantras themselves have the potency, but the samskara, the impression that it's leaving behind, it's what we need, because we are in a place where we just, we say we're going to do something, we don't do it. We promise certain things, and then we don't deliver. And so, okay, this is where we are. That's okay. We're, step by step. And we can learn to be in more integrity. But, for example, there never used to be in Vedic times, there was never any written contracts. People would say something, they would make a promise, and their word meant everything. And so writing, my understanding is that writing used to be considered impure. It was an impure act, because you didn't have to write anything down, because a person's word was a person's word. And so, now we're in a place that if I say I'm going to do something for you, or you say you'll do something for me, we need contracts. We need it in writing. We need some video. We need some audio, all of these things, because we just don't have, we're not in a place to have that integrity. Some people do, a lot of people do, but the world as we see it now does not work like that. People are cheating. The cheating propensity is very big. And so I think the samskara is more for us, just to help us remember, oh, I made this promise. Oh, I said I would do this, but I don't know about the potency of the mantras.
Okay, because I was asking because of what happened in Bangladesh, where the devotees were handicapped. when they have chains of mantras in their possession. So it's bewildering. One have to ask these questions.
Yeah.
We see how the acharyas, the sages of Jami Saranya, we are chanting mantras to do many things, and we tend to repeat these mantras in so many books. And when we are faced with sudden challenges, we tend to forget that there was even a mantra. So it's bewildering. Maybe you, Mother Vajalila, can help me. Mother, please unmute.
Please do.
Well, I see Saha wanted to ask a question. I was going to wait until Saha was finished so that I could just thank Lila, because Lila, they got you really under pressure today.
Yeah, he promised me he would, so he's just keeping his promise.
Yeah, this is beautiful. This is the mood of the devotees in West Africa. I remember when I first went there, and we were distributing books in Nigeria, in Ilopejo, and we would put a mat down on the ground, and we would have the books, and we would, people would come, and many were Christians, and they would take the books, and the next day they would come back and they would say, on page 68, paragraph 4, it says, blah, 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 blah. What does that mean? And I remember we got to be reading these books. Because the devotees, the people there, they were very scrutinizing, and they're very enthusiastic to learn, and they really are very detailed. And that was something that we learned. We learned from them that it's important to not just to read Srila Prabhupada's books, but however to study Srila Prabhupada's books. We really learned that. We had to study the books. So based on wow, Kusha Prabhu. Yeah, you started out with Lila with the fall down question, I was like, okay, fall down. The thing about Srila Prabhupada's books, a lot of Srila Prabhupada's writings, some of it is philosophical, most of it is philosophical. However, some of it is also cultural. And he used certain words, there's certain expressions that he used. That's a part of culture, a part of how, actually the English used to speak. Srila Prabhupada, he was brought up in that English tradition. And he actually learned a lot of words from English-speaking people. And so this word, this terminology, fall down, it's really beautiful how Lila explained that, because it is true that in so many ways we are already fallen, right? We are already fallen in the sense that we're in Maya, that we've fallen from Krishna. And so in that sense, we're fallen because we're conditioned, and we've accepted our conditioned state. However, I believe when we in the West hear that word fall down, it kind of implies like somebody is like there's no hope for another person, or we are criticizing, another person when we say, oh, they fall down. It means that person is not, there's no empathy, there's no empathy. And we tend to treat those persons kind of like outsiders in our communities. We're not accepting, that all of us, wow, this is, look at this, my goodness, wow. Okay. Yeah, we sort of like, this is like a conference we're having here. We don't accept, we don't often, we're so hard to judge, right? So that fall down word, it brings that tendency to judge others. And as Lila was saying, often we don't take a look at ourselves to see, well, what's going on, with ourselves in terms of understanding where we may be in our Krishna conscious life. And like she said, it's cyclical. So sometimes we're sometimes we're at a standstill, but sometimes we may go back around the cycle, So the idea though is to keep going forward. I remember once I was in India, and Jayadeva Swami was giving a class, and he was saying he was sitting up high on like a platform. And he was saying, he said to the audience who was sitting lower, lower than him, he said, so he started the class saying like that. He said, so I'm up here on this platform, sitting in this high chair, whatever. He says, and I can fall from this chair down and, fall down from this platform down and you. He said, I can fall down from this platform. I can fall down from this chair. He said, but you guys, you can't fall anywhere because you're sitting on a flat surface and you can't, you're there, you're there. So that was I like that explanation he gave that day. He was trying to be humble to his audience, but it really made a lot of sense, that sometimes, we may be progressing on the path, and then we may once again, go back to some sense gratification. And that word is used, that terminology is used, I do believe that's cultural though. So the other point that you try to get Lila on was about relationships and rasa.
Yes.
Yeah. Attachment. Well, what thought came to me was like, when we just look at the Mahabharata, we had 5 men attached to one woman. You know what I mean? Like when you think about Draupadi and we think of all the Pandavas, they're pretty attached, to her. And they had Krishna in the center of their lives. You know what I mean? It's like kind of like they were very much, attached to their wife, their one wife, supportive of her, ready to fight for her, ready to go to war for her, and, Krishna was there with them, taking care of them the whole time. So that point Lila made in terms of relationships, it doesn't mean that there is an affection, there is an attachment. The attachment, though, and the affection is that Krishna has to be in the center. And so when Krishna is in the center, then it's fine. You could go to war for your wife, If Krishna
can you?
Sahadev goes to war for his wife all the time, let me tell you. You should have heard how scared Sahadev was when Loka got, sick. She got sick recently, maybe not COVID, but she was sick, maybe the flu. Sahadev was worried, like, don't take her, Krishna. Not now, I need her. Yeah, so anyway, the point is, 10th canto explained that so nicely, in the relationships with the devotees, with Akura, so many devotees, they had wives. Everybody had wives. Everybody is attached to their wife. So however they had affection for Krishna, that's what's important. Then the next point you made about Brahmastra.
Yes.
And what happened with, in this country, Bangladesh. And Lila, again, Lila, I'm so proud of you. Thank you.
You passed the exam.
I mean, and you didn't get flustered. That's the main thing when you get challenged, right? You sometimes people get a little flustered and they lose their cool. You kept your cool. That's great. That's beautiful. The Brahmastra. So the Brahmastra, as she said, not only was it it was definitely mantras, but those mantras they brought, right? Like you were saying too, Prabhu, fire and rain and, arrows, you know what I mean? There were some things that came with those mantras. And of course, as Lila said, that was the age for that time. That was the weapons that was used. The weapons of Kali Yuga is guns. Now we might want to ask, why aren't the devotees prepared with guns in Kali Yuga? Because I was hearing a class just this morning, actually, that one senior devotee was saying, we chant Hare Krishna, that's the mantra given to us, as she nicely said, for our purification. Doesn't mean, though, that when we chant Hare Krishna, we're going to be like not affected by material things, material atmosphere. It doesn't mean that at all, just because we're chanting Hare Krishna. Even if we're chanting other mantras, it doesn't mean we won't be assaulted by material energy, because material energy is created for that. It's created for us to be assaulted. Whether or not people are pure enough to call on these mantras, that's another whole discussion. Are people pure enough to even call on the Hare Krishna mantra, which only came to us 500 years ago by Lord Chaitanya's mercy? Because of him, because of his advent. That's why we got the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra. It's not that long ago. So are we pure enough to even call on that mantra? And even if we are pure enough to call on that mantra, calling on that mantra is only designed to help our souls. So once again, remember our relationship with Krishna. Is it going to stop our bodies from getting affected in this material world? No, not at all. So what happened in Bangladesh, I mean, when you read Chaitanya Lila, you know that this was happening with Lord Chaitanya. Haridas Thakur, he got beaten in how many marketplace by the Muslims? So this is not new. This is something that's going on. Can we say Haridas Thakur, who was so pure, such a pure devotee of the Lord, who knew the mantra, chanted the mantra was his whole body was, affected by chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, yet he was beaten like anything, So yeah, material life. Param yavi param natesham. Danger at every step. And if we forget that, if we think, oh, I'm going to chant this mantra and that means I'm not going to get, no, that's not the case. That's not the case at all. I mean, our soul will get protected for sure. We get another different kind of body in another place. Maybe we could get a body from into another universe that could come here and have some more subtle powers, possibly. Like some yogis have that right here, right now. But yeah, so those, and then the last, I think, the mantras, as Lila was saying, they're rituals, samskaras, in this age, these samskaras, we do them because they're a part also of culture. They're part of the culture, the Vedic culture. And so it's really important for us to always understand what's culture, what's philosophy, because sometimes we merge them. And it's like, it's not always the case that they're the same. And I think those are some of the points that you were making, Prabhu, that I love your questions though, because it makes you think, it makes you really like I was like, oh, Lila, Harbo. I'm glad I'm not sitting on the hot seat. As Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj always used to say, when you're going to give Srimad Bhagavatam class in Africa, I'm going to get on the hot seat. It's a hot seat because he knew all kinds of questions, So So at least by you being on the hot seat, Lila, it gives me an opportunity to think about some of those questions that Kusha Prabhu was asking. And Kusha, that question you have about relationships.
Yes.
Yeah. So now this is Mother Brajalila speaking. There's some purification needed about the relationship thing. Yeah. So it's okay to be affectionate. And it's okay to look at some of those past hurts, put them in the past, keep them in the past. Okay, that's all Mother Regula is going to say for today. All right, Sahadev Prabhu.
Sahadev, please unmute yourself.
Hare Krishna, Mother Lila, thank you so much. Like Mother Bragg said, I appreciate your courage and firmness, even though you were respectfully answering the questions, but you were also quite firm. I remember when we used to have Bhaktivedanta Maharaj with us personally, back home in West Africa, we used to engage in RAS like this. Like sometimes we take the role of impersonalists, and then we ask lots of impersonalist questions, and then Maharaj will answer. Or sometimes he would take that role as an impersonalist. So it's beautiful. But the question I asked and the answer you gave, as you were giving the answer, I was thinking, I think that is what it is. I have heard from other devotees who are like very, very great Sanskrit scholars, that Sanskrit language is so deep that most of the time we do not have the exact equivalence in English language. So when Srila Prabhupada did his translations, he did the translation closest to the word that really fits the Sanskrit word. For instance, when Srila Prabhupada says Krishna expands, the way we understand something expanding in English language does not portray how Krishna expands the way we understand it. But we understand it that way, so we take it that way. But my question following up to that is, Krishna, when we came on this forum, I greeted, I said, Krishna is mischievous, but he's also sweet. Krishna is mischievous. You know, we say that if you do not want your children to smoke cigarette, you yourself should not smoke cigarette, because children usually learn more by seeing it than hearing. You know, so Krishna is telling us not to be mischievous, but he himself is mischievous. He's telling us not to lie, but he himself lies. He was eating mud when he was caught. Balaram reported him. The mother came and says, "No, I'm not eating any mud." He's lying. He himself, see, he stands in a three-banger form. So the way he even stands is not straight. Yet he wants us to be straight. So my question is, with all these contradictions in Krishna's life, how do we see him and try to follow him and to be straight? Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I absolutely love this. One of the things is that we impose this idea on Krishna of God, and that comes with all of these things that we think, you know, God is. But Krishna is a person. You know, more often than not, we're the ones that are trying to act like God, and he's never acting like God. He's never saying do this or do, you know, don't do that, or you're bad. You know, he's beyond all of that. And in the Lila of Shishupala getting his head cut off, when he stands up and he starts talking these things about Krishna and saying Krishna doesn't even do this and he doesn't do that and he doesn't follow regulative principles and he's beyond the Vedic scriptures, Srila Prabhupada says that without knowing it, Shishupala was actually glorifying Krishna, because the reality is that Krishna is above and beyond all of these scriptures and all of these Vedic injunctions and regulative principles. So when we look at Krishna and try to put him in the box of, you know, God is actually a position. Krishna is a person. Then we can become confused. So we look at this person, you know, this is his personality, is that. And the difference is, the reason why we follow regulative principles and Vedic injunctions is because we will get lost and confused and addicted to all of these things. Our regulative principles are not because the things themselves are evil or wrong. It's because we have the potential we're weak, and we have the potential to get lost and lose our free will when we engage in certain activities. Krishna doesn't have that problem, and so he can engage in whatever he wants to engage in because he's completely free of all of these things. We are not. And so until we get to the point of that, then we do have to follow, because we are like children. You would do one thing, and then you get attached to it, and you just start to lose yourself. And so that's why our principles they're principles of freedom, not principles of the opposite, I guess, of trying to control us, right? They're so that we can be free. But Krishna's beyond that. He's above that. He's not going to get lost. We take one part of sense gratification, and if we go deeply into it, we are stuck in it for lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime after lifetime. That Krishna doesn't have that problem. He's not subject to those rules the way we are. And so it's like that same parent thing, like, do as I say, not as I do, because we are not on that level. If we are on that level, then it's a whole different game, but we're not. And we have to be honest and recognize that. That's just one thing I was thinking.
Well, thank you very much. That reminds me of an answer I think Bhakti Vasudev Maharaj gave once when he was speaking on this platform. Like back home in Africa, as a father, especially during dinner time, the father is served, and usually the father's meal portion is much bigger than the kids, So sometimes the kid sees the father's portion of the food. Excuse me to say this, like a amount of nice meat on it, and the kid thinks, why don't I have the same portion? Why don't? But you are not the father. You do not provide the pocket money, But Krishna can do anything and everything, like you said. So thank you so much. But when it comes to the like the mantras and the Brahmastra weapons, I do not think one needs to be a devotee of Krishna necessarily to be able to have such powers. There are many people who have such powers and they don't even know anything about Krishna. There are what we call mantra, yantra, tantra. So these are universal mathematical applications that if one knows how to apply those mathematical applications, then you get the results. But if you do not apply them in the right way, then the devas can punish you. Because, back home in Africa, I personally know some people who can make rain fall on July 4th. Like US here, 4th of July, it's really hot. Somebody can make rain fall that day. Or somebody can make snow fall on July 4th. And these people have nothing to do with Krishna. But we, as trying to be devotees, we do not try to do anything on our own. Even if we have some powers, we do not use them. We still count on Krishna. So I'm sure if even somebody had the power of conjuring Brahmastra weapon in Bangladesh, they may not have used it because devotees naturally do not want to demonstrate how powerful or how intelligent they are. They are always submissive. They cry up to Krishna. In fact, Krishna himself, Prabhu, said this some time ago. Why Draupadi didn't call out to Krishna when she was being disrobed? And the answer is because devotees really don't like asking anything from Krishna. They just want to give. They just want to give. They just want to give. So, merci. Thank you.
Yes, thank you for that. That's beautiful explanation. Yeah, it's really disorienting and mind-boggling to see the state that our world is in. It's really heartbreaking when you read these stories of what's happening, and it's the reality is that the people are suffering, and the people who are perpetrating these crimes are suffering also, because they are so confused, they are so in darkness and so much illusion and so much ignorance. And they are also our brothers and sisters. And so the suffering for us as devotees who see, they're all suffering, the people who are being perpetrated against and the perpetrators themselves. And so we have double the suffering. Our heart is breaking twice for our brothers and sisters who are, what is the need for this? There is no why. At the same time, I like what you said about maybe not showing or not asking for something from Krishna, or not displaying these things, because the reality is they can take up arms and fight. We see from so many examples, Lord Chaitanya didn't do that. And then, like Raja Lila said, this was happening at the time historically when Lord Chaitanya was around, and his way of civil disobedience was nonviolent. The same as Martin Luther King here in the United States. His way of fighting back was with the most powerful weapon that we have, and that is love. But that's just a very simplified answer for a world where real suffering is happening and real violence is happening. And so I don't want to minimize that. And one of the things that have helped me understand, what these things happen to anybody, what to speak of devotees, is that we are in the material world. There is violence, there is danger, and our bodies are constantly, on the edge of extinction. The real protection is going to come from Krishna for protecting our consciousness, because sometimes our bodies are going to come across some violence, or come across some disease, or come across some even old age. And we can chant all the mantras that we want, and nothing is going to stop that, because we are in the material world. So if we can understand that the true protection is, please protect my consciousness, so that I can be in Krishna consciousness while all of these things are happening, then that is the greatest protection. Things will happen to the body, and we are always, under attack by one thing or another. But if we lose that Krishna consciousness, then we have no shelter. And so that has been a meditation that is really practical of don't let me forget. While all of these awful things are happening, or I'm seeing them or experiencing, do not let me forget. And so that's the real protection of our consciousness, our minds, and our intelligence. And maybe that will help us move through whatever is part of our destiny in this world.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for a wonderful class. Devotees, any other question? If not, we let her take rest. She has spoken very nicely today, like Sukadev Goswami. Lila, we let you rest, okay?
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be with you. You're very enlivening, and I just love this Sangha. So thank you so much.
If you love our stubbornness, you are in trouble. Oh. You are very stubborn.
I love it. Unfortunately, I love it.
Thank you so much for coming.
Herbal, I just want to ask Lila to share something with the devotee from Uruguay. She speaks Spanish, and I learned she's here all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Fraga Taruni.
Yeah.
Haribol.
Share something with her quickly, Lila.
Hare
Yes.
Krishna.
Haribol.
Mucho gusto.
Igualmente, ¿cómo estás?
Muy bien aquí,
¿De
viviendo.
dónde es que, ¿En dónde es que estás tú?
Estoy en Florida.
Ah, tengo mi madre viviendo allá también, pero está del otro lado, está en New Jersey.
Ah, yo soy de allá.
¿Sí? Ah,
Sí.
qué bien. Sí.
Wow. Raja Taruni, ¿puedes mandarme tu correo electrónico aquí en el chat para conectarme
Sí.
con?
Dale, ya enseguida te lo mando.
Okay, thank you. We're going to connect.
Yay, good.
Hi. Prabhus, thank you so much. I
You're
wish
welcome.
everyone the best first day of Kartik, and and best wishes to everyone.
We see you in November. So we ask all devotees to kindly unmute yourselves. They chant Hare Krishna to Mother for coming. Kindly unmute, please. Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna, Krishna, Krishna,
Hare
Hare Rama.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama,
Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Hare.
Ribo.
Haribol.
Thank you.
Srila Prabhupada aquí.
Yeah.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,